The vast conference hall aboard the Galactic Federation station hummed with tension. Representatives from 17 advanced spacefaring civilizations sat in tiered rows facing the central podium. Commander Vex, a tall blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like distant stars, stood at attention. "The Crucible begins in 14 standard cycles," Commander Vex announced, voice echoing through the chamber. "As is tradition, each member world may send one team of their finest warriors to attempt completion of the legendary survival course." The delegates nodded solemnly. The Crucible was not simply a test, it was the test. A 30-day survival challenge on the remote world of Targus 7, a planet specifically chosen for its hostile and unpredictable environment. Success meant honor. Failure meant shame. Death was not uncommon. "New member worlds, please prepare your final team selections," Commander Vex continued, eyes scanning the room until they landed on the Earth delegation. The human ambassador, Mr. Reed, smiled and waved cheerfully. He seemed completely unaware of the gravity of the situation, a reaction that caused several alien delegates to exchange concerned glances. After the meeting, Commander Vex approached the human ambassador. "Earth Representative Reed, I must confirm, you understand the nature of the Crucible, correct?" Vex's voice carried genuine concern. Reed nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. A survival challenge that tests physical and mental limits. Earth is excited to participate. It is not merely a challenge," Vex insisted. "The Crucible has claimed lives. Most worlds send only their most elite military forces after years of preparation." Reed laughed. "Well, we're doing things a bit differently. We've set up what we call a lottery system. Any interested citizens could enter. Makes it fair, you know." Commander Vex blinked all 4 of his eyes in rapid succession. "You selected random civilians. For the Crucible. Not random exactly. They had to pass basic fitness tests," Reed explained. "But yes, we wanted to give everyone a chance. The winners are quite excited, treating it like the adventure of a lifetime." Back on Earth, 5 humans gathered at the International Spaceport, each wearing identical jumpsuits with the Earth emblem. A blue circle with green continents. They stood in a loose circle, comparing notes on what little information they had been given about the Crucible. "I packed extra socks," said Mark, a tall man with short brown hair who worked as a structural engineer. "My hiking buddies always say dry feet are happy feet." "Smart," replied Rita, a woman with dark curly hair tied back in a ponytail. Before the lottery, she'd been a high school science teacher with a passion for rock climbing. "I focused on water purification methods. Never know what we'll be drinking out there." The others: Doug, a retired postal worker with a love for wilderness camping; Beth, a nurse who spent weekends competing in obstacle course races; and Joe, a college student who had entered the lottery on a dare. All shared what they thought would be useful skills. None of them had military training. None had ever faced true survival situations. To them, the Crucible sounded like a fantastic reality show, a chance to test themselves and see the stars. They had no idea that throughout the Federation, specialists trained their entire lives just to attempt the Crucible. No idea that most species considered it the ultimate test of a warrior's resolve. No idea that the alien observers watching their cheerful preparations were predicting their deaths within the first few days. To the humans, it was an adventure. To everyone else in the galaxy, it was a death sentence. And none of them could have predicted how thoroughly humanity was about to change the Federation's understanding of what made a true survivor. The transport ship descended through the thick orange atmosphere of Targus 7, buffeted by winds strong enough to make the metal hull creak. Inside, Earth's 5-person team sat strapped into their seats, eyes wide with excitement rather than fear. "Look at those mountains." Beth pressed her face against the small viewport. "They're floating." "Magnetic ore deposits," Rita explained, squinting at the incredible sight of massive rock formations hovering above the planet's surface. The orientation materials mentioned it. Mark grinned. Can't wait to climb one of those. The ship jolted violently as it landed on a flat plain of red dust. The door hissed open, letting in air that smelled like metal and something vaguely like cinnamon. "Welcome to Targus 7, announced their pilot, a six-legged insectoid being who had barely spoken during the 3-day journey. "The gathering area is 1 kilometer east. You are the last team to arrive." The humans stepped out, adjusting their packs and looking around with tourist-like curiosity. "It's like Arizona, but orange," Joe remarked, taking a deep breath. "Air's thicker than I expected." The team walked toward a collection of structures in the distance. As they approached, they saw teams from other worlds gathered in tight formations. Unlike the humans' casual stroll, the other species stood at attention, their postures rigid and eyes alert. The Droxy team, reptilian beings with armored skin, watched the humans approach with vertical pupils narrowing in disbelief. The Vorn contingent, tall, willowy creatures with reflective skin, whispered among themselves, pointing at the humans' relaxed demeanor. Commander Vex stood on a raised platform at the center of the gathering area. His blue skin had darkened in the sun, and he wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor. When he spotted the humans, his expression shifted to something between concern and resignation. "All teams are now present," he announced. "Before we begin, let me be clear about what you face. The Crucible is 30 days of survival in Targus 7's most hostile regions. You will face extreme temperatures, toxic flora, predatory fauna, and terrain challenges designed to test your limits." The assembled teams nodded solemnly, except the humans, who were passing around a bag of dried fruit snacks. Each team will receive a basic survival pack and a map leading to the extraction point. What path you take is your choice. What dangers you face depend on those choices. Medical extraction is available only for life-threatening emergencies, and requesting it means failure. Doug raised his hand. "Question: are we allowed to take pictures?" A ripple of what might have been laughter or horror passed through the alien teams. Commander Vex stared at Doug for a long moment. "The Crucible is not a tourist destination. Earth being." "Got it," Doug replied, looking slightly disappointed. "But technically, you didn't say no." After the briefing, teams were given 1 hour to prepare before the official start. The humans gathered in a circle, spreading their map on the ground. "I vote we name this Space Camp," Joe suggested, pointing at their current position. "Makes it sound more fun." "Seconded," Beth agreed. "And we should give team names to the other species too. Those big yellow guys look like Team Sunshine to me." While the humans cheerfully planned their route, the captain of the Droxy team approached. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with scales that shifted color in the sunlight, he looked down at the sitting humans. "You should know," he said in a voice like grinding stones, "that my team has trained for 12 years for this challenge. 3 of my previous squad mates died in preparation. What experience do you bring to the Crucible?" The humans exchanged glances. "Well," Mark said finally, "Rita once survived 3 days at a music festival when all the toilets broke down." The Droxy captain blinked slowly, turned without another word, and walked away. "I don't think he was impressed," Joe whispered. "His loss," Rita shrugged. "That was a really rough festival." The warning horn sounded. The Crucible had begun. Day 3 of the Crucible brought the first serious challenge. A trek across the glass plains, a vast stretch of razor-sharp crystal formations under twin suns that pushed the temperature well above 120 degrees. Team Earth, or Space Camp, as they now called themselves, woke at dawn. While other species had established military-style camps with precise layouts, the humans had created something that looked more like a festival site, with their equipment arranged in a circle around a small cooking fire. "Today's going to be rough," Mark said, studying the map. "These glass plains stretch for 20 kilometers. Riva nodded, applying a thick layer of sunscreen to her face. "The briefing said the crystals can cut through standard boots. And those twin suns will dehydrate us fast." The team watched as the Vorn squad marched out in perfect formation, their reflective skin giving them natural protection against the heat. The Droxy team followed, their armored bodies seemingly impervious to the sharp terrain. "Well," Doug said cheerfully, pulling something from his pack, "good thing I brought these." He held up 5 pairs of thick-soled hiking boots. "Those aren't standard issue," Beth noted. Doug winked. "Rulebook said we couldn't bring weapons or communication devices. Didn't say anything about footwear. I figured a survival course might involve, walking on bad terrain." Commander Vex, monitoring from a hover platform, watched with growing curiosity as the humans prepared. Unlike other teams who moved with grim determination, these Earth beings seemed to be enjoying themselves. The glass plains lived up to their reputation. By midday, 3 teams had already called for emergency extraction due to severe lacerations and dehydration. The remaining teams pushed forward in silent endurance. Team Earth, however, had developed a system. Joe and Beth walked ahead, using walking sticks to test the terrain. Mark followed, using a small hammer to break the sharpest crystals. Rita identified safe paths, her rock climbing experience proving unexpectedly valuable. Doug brought up the rear, carrying extra water and telling stories to keep morale high. "So anyway," Doug continued a story as they carefully picked their path. "The bear just looks at me, takes my sandwich, and walks away. Most polite thief I've ever met." The team laughed, drawing surprised looks from a passing McClary squad, insectoid beings who had been silent for the entire journey. When they reached a particularly treacherous section, Rita stopped the team. "We need to distribute our weight differently here. These crystal formations are balanced on each other." Mark studied the area. "If we go one by one, the person in front can help pull the next person across." They formed a human chain, each pulling the next across the dangerous stretch. The method was so effective that when the Droxy team found themselves stuck at a similar formation later, they reluctantly adopted the same technique. By sunset, Team Earth had crossed 3/4 of the glass plains, far exceeding Commander Vex's expectations. While they made camp, the commander landed his hover platform nearby for a closer inspection. "Your team is performing unexpectedly well," he observed, his glowing eyes studying them carefully. "Thanks," Joe replied, setting up what looked like a small hammock between crystal formations. "This is actually easier than the time we went camping during hurricane season." "You went camping in a hurricane?" Vex asked incredulously. "Not on purpose," Rita clarified. "The weather report was wrong." Vex watched as the humans efficiently prepared their camp, sharing tasks and creating innovations with limited resources. They had fashioned reflective covers from emergency blankets to protect against the still warm crystals. They had developed a water rotation system that minimized loss from evaporation. Most strikingly, they worked together without explicit orders or hierarchy. "Your team has no designated leader," Vex noted. Mark looked up from where he was filtering water. "We all lead when we need to. Rita knows geology, Doug knows survival, Beth knows first aid, Joe knows navigation, and I know structures. We each step up when our skills matter most." As Vex returned to his monitoring station, he made a detailed entry in his log. "Humans display unusual adaptation methods. They appear to treat lethal challenges as problems to be solved rather than ordeals to be endured. Most concerning, they seem to be having fun." Day 14 marked the halfway point of the Crucible. Only 11 of the original 17 teams remained. Team Earth not only survived but thrived, much to the bewilderment of Commander Vex and the other competitors. Morning arrived with an ominous announcement over the emergency communicators each team carried. "Warning to all participants. You are now entering the mist marshes. Toxic vapors, predatory wildlife, and unstable terrain ahead. Proceed with extreme caution." The mist marshes lived up to their name. A thick, greenish fog hung over bubbling pools of mud. Strange sounds echoed through the swampy landscape, hisses, clicks, and occasional splashes that suggested very large creatures moving beneath the murky surface. "This place smells like my uncle's basement after a flood," Joe remarked, tying a damp cloth over his nose and mouth. "Focus," Rita warned. The briefing mentioned hallucinogenic spores in the air. "We need to stay alert." Beth studied the digital map. "If we stick to the western edge, we might avoid the deepest parts." The team moved carefully, testing each step with their walking sticks before putting weight down. 30 minutes into their trek, they heard a distant scream. Another team encountering trouble. Shortly after, an emergency extraction ship roared overhead. "That's the 4th extraction today," Mark observed grimly. "Hey," Joe said suddenly, eyes lighting up behind his protective goggles. "I just realized something. This is exactly like the toxic tundra level in Survival Quest VI." The others looked at him blankly. "It's a video game," Joe explained. "You have to cross a poisonous swamp while avoiding monsters that track you by movement. The trick is," he grinned, "you don't avoid the monsters, you bait them into fighting each other." Dub chuckled. "Son, this isn't a game. These are real dangers." "No, wait," Rita interrupted. "Joe might be onto something. Those splashes we keep hearing, they follow movement patterns. What if we could predict them?" As if on cue, something massive moved beneath a pool to their right. A slick, tentacled appendage briefly broke the surface before disappearing again. Joe nodded excitedly. "In the game, you throw objects to create disturbances. The creatures attack the splashes." Mark looked skeptical, but reached into his pack and pulled out a ration container. "Worth a try, I guess." He threw the container far to their left. It landed with a splash in a large mud pool. Immediately, the water churned as something large moved toward the disturbance. The team watched in amazement as a creature, something like a cross between an octopus and a crocodile, partially surfaced to investigate. "It worked," Beth whispered. "Joe, you're a genius." "Now watch this," Joe said. He quickly gathered some marsh reeds and tied them to another container. "Fire in the hole." He threw his makeshift bomb toward another pool, this one between the first creature and their path. When it splashed down, a second predator emerged. The first creature, seeing the movement, immediately changed direction. What followed was a spectacular battle between two marsh monsters, completely ignoring the humans who slipped quietly past. The team continued using Joe's video game strategy throughout the day. They developed a scoring system: 10 points for successfully baiting a predator, 20 for causing a monster fight, 50 for finding a safe path no other team had discovered. By sunset, Team Earth had traversed 5 kilometers of the mist marshes without a single injury. They made camp on a relatively dry patch of land, their spirits high despite the dangerous surroundings. Commander Vex, observing through surveillance drones, could hardly believe what he was seeing. He called the captain of the Droxy team, who had begrudgingly become the de facto alien spokesperson regarding the humans. "The Earth team," Vex said, "they're treating deadly predator evasion as some sort of game." The Droxy captain's scales shifted to a color indicating confusion. "Perhaps they don't understand the danger." "No," Vex replied slowly, watching as the humans celebrated another successful monster baiting with what appeared to be a victory dance. "I believe they understand perfectly. They simply refuse to be afraid." In his private log that night, Commander Vex made a note: "Human approach to survival situations defies conventional understanding. They convert mortal danger into recreational activity, transforming fear into something they call fun. Most disturbing development yet." Day 21 of the Crucible dawned with an ominous sky. The twin suns of Targus 7 were hidden behind swirling clouds that pulsed with internal lightning. Team Earth had made camp at the edge of a rocky valley that led to the final stage of the course. "That doesn't look good," Mark said, eyeing the strange clouds as he packed up his sleeping gear. Rita studied her handheld atmospheric analyzer. "These readings are off the charts. The air pressure is dropping faster than anything in the briefing materials. Commander Vex's voice crackled over all emergency communicators. Attention all Crucible participants. Our sensors detect an unexpected meteorological event forming in your vicinity. This storm exceeds safety parameters for the exercise. Seek immediate shelter. Repeat, seek immediate shelter. The urgency in Vex's normally composed voice was unmistakable. Well, Doug said, quickly securing loose equipment, looks like Mother Nature didn't read the rulebook. The team looked around. The valley offered no natural protection, and the nearest designated safe zone was over 10 kilometers away. We won't make it to the bunker before that hits, Beth calculated, watching the clouds spin faster. We need a plan B. The wind picked up, carrying small rocks and debris. In the distance, they could see other teams scrambling for safety. The proud Vorn squad was attempting to outrun the storm, their tall bodies struggling against the increasing wind. The Droxy team had wedged themselves into a narrow rock crevice. Remember that cave network we passed yesterday? Joe suggested. It's only about a kilometer back. Good thinking, Mark agreed. But we should tell the others. That storm looks big enough to cause serious damage. Without hesitation, Rita activated their emergency communicator to broadcast on the shared channel. Attention all teams. Earth squad here. There's a cave system 1 kilometer west of the valley entrance, large enough for everyone. We're heading there now. The response was immediate, a mix of surprised acknowledgments and suspicion. The team didn't wait to debate. They grabbed their essential gear and moved quickly back toward the caves. The storm accelerated faster than anyone predicted. Halfway to the caves, the wind became strong enough to knock Beth off her feet. Mark and Doug formed a human chain, linking arms to stay together as visibility dropped to near zero. They reached the cave entrance just as the first wave of electric rain began, droplets that sizzled and sparked when they hit the ground. Conductive rain, Rita shouted over the howling wind. Don't let it touch your skin. Inside the cave, they found the McClary squad already taking shelter. The insectoids clicked their mandibles in what might have been gratitude. Over the next 20 minutes, more teams staggered in. First the Vorn, then a mixed group of smaller species, and finally the Droxy, their armored skins smoking slightly from the electric rain. The Droxy captain approached Team Earth, who had organized themselves to help incoming survivors. Your warning saved my squad, he admitted reluctantly. Why would you help competitors? Doug looked genuinely confused. It's a storm, not a competition rule. Everyone deserves to be safe. As the cave filled with representatives from surviving teams, something unexpected happened. The rigid divisions between species began to dissolve in the face of shared danger. Beth, using her medical training, treated minor injuries without distinction between teams. Joe organized a system for rationing the available light sources. Mark worked with the Vorn to reinforce the cave entrance against flooding. When Commander Vex finally made contact 3 hours later, his voice was tight with concern. All teams, report status. One by one, the teams confirmed their safety. When it was Earth's turn, Rita simply said, "We're all here, Commander. Everyone's safe." The storm raged for 2 full days, far longer than any test condition in Crucible history. The teams that might have perished individually survived together, following the improvised community system started by the humans. In his observation post, safely above the storm, Commander Vex made a lengthy entry in his log. The storm has revealed something remarkable about Earth's approach. Where other species see survival as an individual triumph over adversity, humans instinctively create communities. Their first impulse was not to seek advantage but to ensure collective survival. This may be their greatest strength. When the storm finally cleared, leaving behind a dramatically altered landscape, 9 teams emerged from the caves. They no longer looked at Team Earth with confusion or disdain. They watched them with something new. Respect. Day 27 arrived with Commander Vex's grim announcement. Remaining teams, prepare for the final trial. You will cross the burning wastes with no additional supplies. 3 days of endurance separating you from completion. Many begin this trial. Few complete it. The burning wastes lived up to their name. A vast desert of black sand that absorbed the twin suns' heat, creating surface temperatures hot enough to melt standard-issue boot soles. Worse, the air was so dry it pulled moisture from the body with each breath. Only 7 teams remained to face this final challenge. They gathered at the starting point, studying the featureless expanse before them. The extraction point and completion of the crucible lay 70 kilometers across this hellscape. The Droxy captain approached Team Earth as they prepared. After the storm, a cautious respect had developed between them. "My people evolved in marshlands," the captain said, scales shifting to a concerned blue-gray. "This terrain will be challenging for us." Mark nodded, understanding the warrior's reluctance to admit weakness. "Stay near us. We've got some ideas." As Commander Vex signaled the start of the final trial, the mood among the alien teams was solemn. They moved forward with grim determination, conserving energy, speaking little. Team Earth, however, was having a strategy meeting that looked suspiciously like a party huddle. "All right, space camp," Beth said, hands in the middle of their circle. "Last challenge. I say we make it interesting." "What did you have in mind?" Doug asked, grinning despite the sweat already pouring down his face. "Race to the finish," Beth proposed. "Last one there cleans everyone's gear when we get back." And she paused dramatically. "Winner gets everyone's dessert rations for a week." "You're on," Joe laughed. "But we should stagger our start times based on our strengths. I'm better in morning temperatures. Rita's better at night navigation." The other teams watched in disbelief as the humans created a complex racing schedule, complete with checkpoints and handicaps. "They finally lost their minds from heat exposure," one Vorn warrior commented. The first day across the burning wastes was brutal. 2 more teams requested extraction, their bodies simply unable to cope with the extreme conditions. The remaining aliens moved in energy-conserving shuffles, battling for each step. Team Earth transformed the ordeal into a marathon. Riva took the lead, having run dozens of desert races for fun back on Earth. She jogged steadily, stopping regularly to mark the trail with small stone arrows for her teammates. "Just like Badwater Basin," she called back to Mark, who followed 50 meters behind, though that had better snack stations. By nightfall, Team Earth had covered nearly 30 kilometers, an almost impossible distance that forced Commander Vex to check his tracking equipment for malfunctions. The second day proved even harsher. The temperature rose higher, and the black sand began to form disorienting heat mirages. The remaining alien teams moved only during the coolest hours, spending midday burrowed under portable shade structures. Beth took her turn at the lead during the worst heat of the day. A veteran of ultra-marathons in Death Valley, she maintained a steady pace while singing pop songs from Earth, the cheerful music drifting eerily across the wasteland. The Droxy team, struggling with their heat-sensitive biology, found themselves following Beth's music like a beacon. When they caught up, she showed them how to create evaporative cooling wraps from their limited water supplies. "You waste water on your skin," the Droxy captain asked in shock. "It's not waste if it keeps you alive," Beth explained. "The water evaporates, but it cools you down enough to keep going." By the third day, only 4 teams remained on the course. Team Earth, the Droxy, 1 Vorn, and a lone Meklari warrior. The extraction point appeared on the horizon, a small silver structure shimmering in the heat. Job took the final leg for Team Earth, adopting what he called his video game boss fight strategy. Short bursts of speed followed by brief recoveries. "It's all about managing your stamina bar," he explained to the confused Meklari who had decided to travel alongside him. "Never empty the tank completely." As they approached the final kilometer, Joe turned to his companions. "Race you to the finish." Without waiting for a response, he broke into a sprint across the burning sand. After a moment of stunned silence, the McClary clicked its mandibles in what might have been laughter and accelerated after him. Commander Vex, waiting at the extraction point, watched in astonishment as humans and aliens alike crossed the finish line not with exhausted relief, but racing each other with their last reserves of energy. In his final observation of the trial, Vex wrote simply, "Humans do not endure. They compete, even against the void itself. And somehow, they bring others along with them." The Grand Hall of the Galactic Federation Station gleamed with polished metal and ceremonial banners. Representatives from all 17 member species filled the tiered seating, murmuring in anticipation. At the center stood a raised platform where Commander Vex waited, his blue skin now adorned with formal markings of respect. "Today we honor those who completed the Crucible," Commander Vex announced, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. Of 17 teams who began, only 4 completed the full course. The surviving team stood at attention before the platform. The lone McClary warrior, 2 remaining Vorn, 5 Droxy, and all 5 humans of Team Earth, looking surprisingly relaxed in their formal Federation uniforms. In the 37 cycles that I have overseen the Crucible, I have never witnessed a more remarkable demonstration of survival skill than that shown by Team Earth, Commander Vex continued, causing a ripple of surprised whispers through the audience. He gestured toward the humans. For the first time in Crucible history, a team of non-warriors completed the course with all members intact. The Federation President, a tall being with crystalline features, stepped forward. "We have reviewed Commander Vex's detailed reports. The human approach to the Crucible challenges our understanding of survival itself." The President turned to face the human team directly. "You treated lethal dangers as games. You transformed isolation into community. You faced the void not with grim determination, but with what you call fun. Explain this to us." Mark glanced at his teammates, then stepped forward. "Where we come from, Earth is filled with danger. Our history is one of adapting to hostile environments. But somewhere along the way, we learned that survival is easier when you don't face it alone, and when you find joy even in hardship." Rita added, "Humans climb mountains not because we must, but because they're there. We dive into oceans, explore caves, cross deserts, not always for resources or territory, but for the challenge itself." "This makes no logical sense," the President observed. "Why risk death when no reward is guaranteed?" Doug smiled. "With respect, the experience is the reward. The stories we'll tell, the things we learned about ourselves, that's worth more than any material prize." Beth stepped forward with the medal they had been awarded. "Also, we made friends along the way. The Droxy taught us about detecting vibrations in the sand. The Vorn showed us how to read the stars on Targus 7. The McClary demonstrated amazing techniques for conserving water. The Droxy captain, standing nearby, shifted his scales to a color-indicating agreement, and we learned from the humans as well. Their creativity in the face of certain doom is unlike anything in our tactical manuals." Commander Vex raised all 4 of his hands for silence. "The most valuable lesson from this Crucible is this. We have misunderstood what makes a survivor. We believed it was stoic endurance, rigid discipline, and solitary strength. Team Earth has demonstrated that adaptation, cooperation," and he paused, seeming to find the concept still strange, "enjoyment are equally powerful tools for survival." The Federation President nodded solemnly. "From this day forward, the Crucible will be reformed. All member worlds will be encouraged to send diverse teams, not just warriors. The humans have shown us that different perspectives find different solutions." Joe grinned and whispered to his teammates, "Does this mean we get to come back next year?" "Furthermore," the President continued, "we formally request that Earth provide instructors to teach their unique approach to survival challenges." Ambassador Reed stepped forward, looking somewhat overwhelmed. "I'm sure we can arrange something. We have plenty of adventure tour guides, wilderness instructors, and extreme sports enthusiasts who would love to visit other worlds." As the ceremony concluded, The humans found themselves surrounded by representatives from various worlds, all eager to learn more about Earth's approach to survival. Commander Vex made his final entry in the official Crucible record. The legend of Team Earth will endure in Federation history. They came to a course designed for hardened warriors and treated it like a recreational activity. In doing so, they redefined our understanding of what it means to survive. Perhaps the greatest strength of humanity is not their adaptability or creativity, but their ability to find light even in the darkest void. They do not merely survive, they live. The next year, enrollment in the Crucible tripled. Teams from across the galaxy arrived wearing colorful uniforms, carrying cameras, and speaking excitedly about the challenges ahead. Many had trained under human instructors who taught them not just survival techniques, but how to enjoy the journey. And on Earth, a new reality show called Extreme Space Camp became the most popular program in human history.